Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and this is a follow-up to the narcissist goal is to destroy you. And here's her story. Thanks, Ollie. I just watched your thoughts, and it's nice to hear the relating with laughter. I've never told my whole story to anyone but my husband, but not like this from the beginning. It's therapeutic to write it. My truth. And then to have someone who really understands, a stranger, take the time to help me feel less weird and broken. I'm so very honored that you have dubbed my mother the living drunkie the clown. Hey, she earned it. But I kinda did too. 41 years living her plastic vodka-marinated wonderland of lies. This last 2 months have been hard, but I'm glad to be living in the real world now. So here I pick up my story. I'll only be able to donate half of what I did last time. I'm just on a budget. If this expert doesn't finish my story, I'll be able to... Okay. I don't know why I feel the need to explain my financials. I'll continue. So picking up where I left off, she kicked me out. I went out that day and got another job bussing tables at the restaurant to the one I already worked at and drove around looking for apartments. I found one I could afford. The landlady said she'd give me a chance because the rent was low and I had 2 jobs. So that was that. I went home that night to start packing and my dad was home by then. I remember an argument. I don't remember if my dad defended me. Well, that means he didn't. If you can't remember if you were defended, you weren't. Because you don't forget being defended. You don't. By that time, he was so out of it on Paxil and alcohol. Yes, he picked up some somewhere after we moved. I couldn't and didn't care. She tried to take it back. She said she didn't mean it, that I didn't have to leave. I told her it was too late. I signed a lease, had a second job. I wanted to go. So I did, and it was rough. The place was a shithole studio that had been converted from the master bedroom of a 2-bedroom. I didn't care about that, but the area sucked. I'd have to listen to domestic disputes and violence all the time. I think I could have gotten any kind of drug I wanted in that complex. I called my guy. I caught my guy with my friend, and we all worked together. So I had to switch out another job. Anyway, my life was a stupid mess. I wound up back at home a couple weeks after only being away for 6 months. I told my mother I was a mess. I couldn't believe what my ex and friend had done to me, and I needed help taking care of myself for a while. She allowed it, but said I couldn't stay long. Those couple of weeks I was there, I saw some disturbing things. My dad was totally doped and oblivious while mother was enjoying her booze. My little brother and his friends, a bit too much, pouring her cleavage out all over the kitchen counter in their faces, being obnoxious and loud drunk. The crazier thing was, I don't think they minded her. One day, one of my brother's friends brought over a dildo with a suction cup on the base. He stuck it to the mirror in my mother's room. Everyone was laughing and playing around with it, including my mother. Oh my fuck. Well, I had my mother. My drunkie the fuck clown was fucking naked on the refrigerator in lingerie. Well, half naked, spread out in fucking sexual poses and Polaroids on the goddamn in lingerie on the refrigerator. Like I said, our upbringings are very similar. Also, during that stay, I took a shower in my mother's bathroom one day because little brother was in the other bathroom. I went to use her shampoo and it was completely runny, like water, and it smelled like booze because it was. Yep, the booze in the shower bottle. Oh. But what's the point? Here's the thing. I never understood why my mother was hiding alcohol. My father never tried to stop her drinking. Doesn't sound like anybody in your house is trying to stop. It's like they want to lie to themselves. Or they like it. They still feel they're being dubious. They hide alcohol for what? What was your mother hiding alcohol and shower bottles for? Probably because maybe she just didn't want to be seen taking a vodka bottle into the shower with her. But my mother would do that. I mean, she would bring the mixer because my mother would drink right out of the fucking the shaker cup. Fucking vodka, like a splash of tonic or whatever the fuck else she put it. She called them woo-woos. You can burn down half a block with one shaker cup of them. That's how potent they were. And there she was walking around with a stainless steel fucking shaker cup, just slugging it. Yet she still had bottles strewn everywhere, hidden. I then got curious and later poked around a bit. I found big plastic vodka bottles under the bed in the laundry room. Ew. Why do people think they get away with vodka? They think it's like water. Because it's so clear, they think it's water. They put it in water bottles and you can walk around with it. And my dad had whiskey hidden out in his shop. They openly drank beer, but hid their booze, but it wasn't just from us kids, but from each other. What a mess. And I'm seeing all this and knowing how completely screwed my family is, and just wanting to get out, but still wanting that woman to love me. By then I'd figured out that if you ever disagree with my mother at all, you get the silent treatment. Her 17-year-old daughter was living in Crack Central next to sociopaths, and she never once called to see how I was. Because you were still living, nothing changed about you living with sociopaths. The only thing that changed was the crack. You still were living with addicted sociopaths. It's just crack might have been worse. And it was in a shithole. You didn't change anything. Why would your mother see crack? I mean, your mother's slugging fucking vodka out of shampoo bottles. They're all sociopaths. This woman is really coming into focus as my kid's age. My oldest is almost 16. That's 1 year younger than when I was than I was when she kicked me out. I could never imagine doing that since either of mine and just forgetting them, not calling. I see now how my mother's behavior isn't normal, and the reason I still say she kicked me out, even though she flipped and tried to take it back, because the kicking out has been a 17-year process, long, slow, depressing, soul-crushing process that she knew I could only end. Only I could end. My dad would never forgive her if she kicks me out. Don't think I'm paranoid by thinking everything she does is manipulative. No, everything she does do is manipulative. But you think you're giving your father way too much credit. Like, your father's allowing this so he can drink and do drugs. He doesn't give a shit. You see, here's your mistake. Your mistake is thinking your father is on. Your father never defended you. It's why you don't know because he never did. It never happened. You're building this image of your father up in your head that doesn't fucking exist. They're hiding alcohol and shampoo bottles on each other. You think they don't know they're doing that? Your father's a master of burying his head in the sand as long as he gets what he wants. And that's his booze and his pills and his drugs, and your mother, her fucking sexual attention and her booze and whatever else. You're fooling yourself here with this image you have of possibly your father. Father didn't give a shit if you got kicked out or not. Or if he did, the only reason he would care is it gave your mother a target to focus her rage on instead of him. I have 41 years of observation, and she loves to accuse me of manipulating, like not doing anything without an end game or some selfish reason for it. Right. My mother's favorite thing was you have an ulterior motive. Ulterior motive. Ulterior. She was yelling ulterior motive at me as a child. Fuck, she even said it on phone call with narcissistic mother. They're projecting because they're all about ulterior motives. The narcissist is always working an ulterior motive. Always. Always. That's both your parents. I see now that's because she's selfish, she's manipulative, and the proof keeps coming from here. So I move back out, back to the same apartment complex, different studio shithole, always keeping 2 jobs, although I kept having to switch. After my ex screwed me over, I started delivering pizzas. My 71 Beetle wasn't keeping up with that much driving. It kept breaking down. Dad always dealt with the car repairs, and I couldn't ask him. He hadn't called either. So then why would he care if you gotten thrown out or not if he hasn't called? Stop fooling yourself about your father. The assistant manager was good with bills and would always just fix my car when it'd break down. I don't like that when men just step in and act like my father or something. After a while of that, he finally asked me out. I went because I didn't want to lose my job. Thank God he didn't kiss me or anything. You should have been honest with him. Shouldn't have went out with him. I mean, I understand, but that's not exactly the best way to handle it. And that's not acting like, it's acting like he's trying to prove his value to you as a boyfriend, as a potential mate, or boyfriend. You're searching for a real father. He's not trying to be your dad because your dad took care of the car repairs. That doesn't mean that's what your dad does your entire life. If you don't understand car, your spouse or your partner or your boyfriend, they go to. He's trying to be like a potential boyfriend to you, not a father. You're confusing that there. He seemed older, but I thought it would be rude to ask how old he was. I just wasn't attracted to him. Anyway, I used that car as an excuse to quit the job. T was managing a little deli restaurant by then and offered me a job. I took it. She constantly sexually harassed me at work. I had to park my car because I had gotten 2 tickets and couldn't afford my insurance, yet she wouldn't give me a lift. So whatever. I rode my bike, but one day she said she'd pick me up and didn't. When I showed up on my bike, she wrote me up for being late and told me to clean up. I wasn't serving customers all sweaty and gross like that. I reminded her she said she'd give me a ride today. She said no, she didn't remember that. Anyway, lots of that kind of sadistic shit that you kind of just let happen because you don't think that way. You'd never do that to anyone, not even an enemy. I mean, what did this girl actually sit at a desk and map out her schemes against me? No, she didn't have to sit at a desk to do it. They're constantly scheming. There's a constant ulterior motive. It's a constant scheme. Anyway, what finally got me to cut her off is she fired me. She called me on my day off, asked me if I could work. I told her I had plans with some friends. She told me if I'd come in if my job was important to me. I figured she was joking. She wasn't. She fired me the next shift I went in for. From there, I found a waitressing job at a nice family restaurant. It was busy, and I was able to quit the second job. I was able to add a couple of classes at the community college. I failed to mention that. I was going to school after high school minus the second semester. I wasn't able to take many classes, but I always stayed in getting my prerequisites done. Anyway, that was a fun job, good money, mostly good people. I even made a good friend we'll call A. She was also a student and very smart and deep. We had so much fun. She wound up messing around with my little brother one of the rare times he came to visit me. It really bothered me, and I never trusted her again. She later even tried to come on to me, but that's a little ways down the road. Some things happened that sucked during that time I was working at that family restaurant. My downstairs neighbor, who had been acting like a friend, raped me in my apartment. I moved in with a few girls from work. One of them turned out to be doing meth, another cocaine. I lived there for a month and did both those drugs. I liked them too much, so I left. I found a cute little studio in a slightly nicer area. Still no car, but right on the bus route and 20 minutes to work by bike. So I was really happy. The meth cokehead girls were gone from work. The happy, smooth time lasted maybe almost a year until Dad called. He had been laid off, couldn't find work. He was moving to California for a job. He and Mother couldn't get along anyway, so he thought it best. There it is. That's why you didn't want you kicked out, because once you're out, a year. That's how long they lasted. A year. You were there to take the pressure off it, and then wasn't a job. You probably lost the job because of what was going on at home, because the target wasn't there anymore. You got some misconceptions about your father. I was shocked. He went on to remind me little brother is going into basic training in a few months, that Mother has never lived alone, and that he was worried how she'd do so. It was all about you being your mother's target. It's all ulterior motives. It's all ulterior motives with these people. Your father is I'm going to tell you this, your father is a bigger piece of shit than your mother, because he knows what a piece of shit your mother is, and he's trying to put you in that position to save his own ass. Fuck your father. He asked me to please move home. He laid it on thick. He was such a nice person. I always gave in. I was personally thinking I could finally maybe finish college if I wasn't paying bills. He wasn't going to charge me anything. I was doing him a favor. So I did it. I filled up my schedule, and on my way to graduating, transferred to the restaurant nearer to the house. Still loved work. Great new people there. Loved school. I finished my prerequisites and was doing all my studio art classes, and had my dad's workshop to work on stuff at home. I tried to stay away from my mother. She was getting really weird, dressing more and more provocatively, staying drunk, doting on little bro and his friends, and being what I feel is inappropriately flirtatious and crude. These kids were 17 and 18. Little bro was 17 and drinking, but she acted like she didn't notice. I assume his friends were too. My mother was partying, having people over. She loved her booze and her pool. I admit I started drinking more while I was there. I was 21. She now encouraged me to hang out drinking with her and her work friends. My mother's creepy cousin rode into town on this Harley and was staying on her couch. The guy gave me the creeps since I was just little. And my mother laughed at me for it and would still make me be around him. He was overly interested in me, and I was trying to stay busy and away from the house. One night my mother said, go swimming with, we'll call him Creepy. He wants to take a night swim before he leaves tomorrow, and I'm all ready for bed. I'm thinking about this now, and I'm like, no, don't do it. But you have to understand, this woman will keep at you in front of others. She'll insist and make you feel like you're the one being a prude or silly or stuck up. Anyway, as soon as I got in the pool, I started complaining it was cold. He was trying to engage me, but I kept bringing it back to how cold I was and got out. I don't know what his intentions were. I don't know. I now know it doesn't matter. What matters is I shouldn't have been in the pool with them because I didn't want to be. She wanted me in the pool with them, and I don't even know why. She loved getting me in my swimsuit, parading me in front of people. I never wanted to, and she always made me do things I wasn't comfortable with. One time, this is back in high school, she won a radio contest, and the radio show was coming out to the house to do a show from her hot tub. Ugh. She insisted I get in and hang out with these strange radio guys in my suit. I didn't. It was awful. I would just clam up and get picked on for being quiet. So mortifying. What a whore. To Mother, it was all so much fun. So moving along with the story, Mother was getting weirder and weirder, and I was trying to stay away. One night I invited A out to celebrate my completing an oral presentation that I was really a knots about. When we went to a little place with food, bar, and pool tables, we were having beer, shooting pool, and I couldn't stop looking at this man at the bar alone. He was eating all alone, handsome as the Arizona sun is warm. I pointed him out to A. She told me to go talk to him. I said no and started feeling hot from embarrassment. She asked the two Mexican guys on the table next to us if they thought I should go talk to him. They started nodding and saying yes and going on about amor en español. They were so funny and encouraging, I got taken up in the moment. I found myself moving across the room towards him. I leaned on the bar to his right and said hi. He turned, and out of his mouth came the most soothing Midwestern accent and smooth, low voice, hello. His eyes pierced my soul, and after I finished swallowing my heart, I asked if he liked to play pool. He said yes, and he'd be over after his dinner. I know, Ollie, this sounds sappy or like it's out of a novel, but I'm just trying to get across how I actually experienced it. It was love at first sight, and I now know maybe not the healthiest. He taught us how to play 9-ball, and I gave him my number. I left feeling giddy about sleeping and had trouble sleeping that night. I convinced myself he wouldn't call, that I must have been my friend he was interested in. And then when he did call, I didn't answer because I convinced myself I liked him too much and he'd derail my plans. However, I'm 22 at this point and have not been with anyone since I was 18, unless you count the rape. I don't. This guy is really attractive, so I had a fuck it, let's see what happens. Let's see what this guy is really about moment, and called him back. We started dating and I moved in with him within a month. You just move in way too quick. I mean, you pick up and you move way too fast. My mother loved him. She was saying things like, now you have to do this to keep him. You have to do that. He had a cute little apartment downtown. We had been living there a while, but hadn't finished unpacking. He bought me a dresser, my own nightstand. I fixed the place up while he was at work. I worked nights and he worked days. We were so in love, and he asked me to marry him within a year. I had never even thought about marriage, but I was so in love, I hardly had to think about it. I invited my mother to lunch to tell her I was getting married. I expected backlash. Well, because I always got backlash about anything. And here I've gone and made the biggest life decision without consulting her. I got not the slightest bit of negativity. She was going to plan everything for me. Right, because a wedding is an opportunity now for her to shine. She has an ulterior motive. There's always an ulterior motive. She's going to plan everything for me, and the wedding was going to be at her house. There you go. She immediately started planning and was constantly layering the guilt for all she's doing. I wore the dress she wanted. We had the food she wanted. All I really got to pick was the music. It started to rain about 10 minutes before the backyard ceremony, so it was moved inside. My dad had to hold me up while he walked me down the aisle. My dad had to hold me up while he walked me down the aisle, my mother's hallway, but I made it. I married my husband, so because of that, it was the most beautiful wedding I could ask for. He and I left early. I later heard stories of B and mother brawling furniture, of B and mother brawling, furniture being thrown. One friend told me my mother was going around drinking half the finished beers. Oh my Christ. Yeah, they tend to get pissed at the reception hall if you start throwing their furniture around. They don't like that. So furniture being thrown around after your wedding. people getting run down in the street in front of the Little League field after my wedding. Doesn't really matter. It's all chaos. She was trying to seduce her cousin, well, everyone. She would never admit that because she thinks this is normal behavior. But remember creepy. He was sitting on the picnic table bench, and my mother was sitting on the picnic table top with her dress hiked up and straddling his back real snug. This is why I told my husband we needed to go at her own wedding. At her own wedding. My poor dad was there watching all of this, and the man who was really trying to keep his cool, and he did. He put himself in charge of husband and my hotel and paid for it, reserved it. He even asked me for our bags and left them in the room. He also left a single red rose and a card. He'd never done anything like that. It was cool. Big fucking deal. Big fucking deal. He wanted you out of there because your mother was making a complete fucking horse's ass out of herself. His own ulterior motive, trying to make himself look like the good guy. After he encouraged this for how fucking long? He enabled it for how fucking long? Don't feel bad for him. His ulterior motive is to look like the good guy in all this. It ain't real. So maybe my wedding is a good place to break for now. This is a lot for me, but I think it's good for me to do this. Don't worry, the story gets better, but it has to get worse first, unfortunately. Thanks so much again, Ollie. I don't know how you do it. You must have to shower after each video. Funny thing is, until recently, I'd have told you I'd had a normal childhood. When I did the step work on it, I told my sponsor that. I had a pretty normal childhood. My dad was an alcoholic, but he fought it and won much of the time. I always had a house, food. I was a good student. I was fine, normal. Now I see I really wasn't normal, which in and of itself is hard. But listening to other people's stories, I feel less alone. And also feel kind of lucky. Some people had it so much worse than me, and I'm blessed. Crazy thing you're doing here. I love it. I love I can be anonymous. Otherwise, I couldn't do this. Until the next installment. Bless you, Ollie Matthews. Anonymous E. Well, Anonymous E, you're going to have to realize your whole childhood was an ulterior motive. Your whole life has been ulterior motives, because that's the narcissist. The narcissist always has ulterior motives, period. So thank you for another contribution and story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Result.